If you enjoy emotional, inspiring stories filled with kindness, unexpected twists, and life-changing moments, then you're in the right place. Today's story is about a poor, single father who stops to help a stranded woman on a rainy night, never knowing that she is actually the judge who will decide his fate in court. What begins as a simple act of humanity slowly turns into a powerful journey of justice, struggle, and destiny that changes his life forever. So make sure you watch till the end, because this story will truly touch your heart. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more amazing stories. Now, let's get started. The late afternoon sky over rural Texas was turning dark long before sunset. Thick gray clouds rolled across the horizon, swallowing the last traces of sunlight. Michael Carter tightened his grip on the steering wheel of his aging pickup truck as rain began tapping against the windshield. At 34 years old, he looked older than his age. Years of hard work, sleepless nights, and constant worry had left their mark. His worn work boots rested on the floorboard, and his tired eyes stayed focused on the wet highway ahead. Another long day was finally ending, and all he wanted was to get home to his daughter. Life had not gone the way Michael once imagined. 10 years earlier, he had been a happily married man with dreams of building a comfortable future for his family. He and his wife, Emily, had lived in a small house outside Dallas and spent their weekends planning adventures with their little girl, Lily. But everything changed when Emily became seriously ill. Despite months of treatments and hospital visits, she passed away, leaving Michael alone to raise their daughter. The loss shattered him. Some days he felt like he was simply surviving rather than truly living. Since Emily's death, every decision Michael made revolved around Lily. She was 8 years old now, bright, kind, and remarkably mature for her age. Michael worked tirelessly to provide for her. During the day, he repaired machinery at a local warehouse, and several evenings each week he worked extra shifts delivering supplies for a transportation company. The jobs barely covered their expenses, but he refused to complain. Whenever he felt exhausted, he reminded himself that Lily depended on him. That thought alone kept him moving forward through even the hardest days. Earlier that morning, Michael had woken before sunrise. He prepared breakfast, packed Lily's lunch, and walked her to the school bus stop. As always, she hugged him tightly before boarding. "Don't work too hard, Dad," she had said with a smile. Those simple words stayed with him throughout the day. Lily often worried about him more than a child her age should. Michael tried his best to hide his financial struggles, but children noticed more than adults realized. Even so, Lily never asked for expensive toys or fancy clothes. She only wanted time with her father. The warehouse had been especially busy that day. A shipment arrived late, forcing employees to stay longer than scheduled. Michael spent hours lifting heavy equipment and repairing malfunctioning machinery. By the time his shift ended, his back ached and his hands were covered with grease. Most workers headed home, but Michael still had another job waiting. He quickly grabbed a sandwich from a vending machine and drove across town to begin his evening deliveries. It wasn't glamorous work, but every extra dollar mattered. School supplies, groceries, rent, and medical bills seemed to appear faster than he could pay them. As the evening progressed, weather conditions worsened. Thunder rumbled in the distance while strong winds bent trees along the roadside. Michael completed his final delivery and began the long drive home. He glanced at the dashboard clock and realized Lily would probably be asleep by the time he arrived. The thought disappointed him. Their schedules often kept them apart. Sometimes he felt guilty that work stole so much of their time together. Yet he knew he had little choice. Providing stability for Lily was his responsibility, and he carried that responsibility with unwavering determination. The rain intensified as he traveled along a less populated stretch of highway. Water splashed beneath the truck's tires, and visibility decreased with every mile. Michael switched on his headlights and slowed down. The road ahead appeared nearly empty. Most people preferred staying indoors during storms like this. He turned on the radio to stay alert, but static interrupted the signal. The storm was interfering with local stations. With nothing else to listen to, he drove quietly, listening to the rhythm of rain striking the windshield and the occasional crack of thunder overhead. As Michael rounded a curve, something unusual caught his attention. A vehicle was parked on the shoulder ahead, with its hazard lights blinking weakly through the rain. He instinctively slowed down. Beside the car stood a woman holding a suitcase and shielding herself from the downpour, with little success. She appeared alone. For a moment, Michael continued driving. He was exhausted. Soaking roads made him nervous, and he desperately wanted to get home. But after traveling a short distance farther, he glanced into the rearview mirror and saw the stranded figure again. A familiar memory surfaced. Years earlier, when Emily had become ill, strangers had helped his family in unexpected ways. Neighbors delivered meals, friends watched Lily during hospital visits. Even complete strangers had shown kindness when Michael needed it most. Those acts of compassion had carried him through some of the darkest periods of his life. Thinking about that, he knew he couldn't simply leave the woman standing there alone in the storm. With a sigh, he slowed the truck, turned around carefully, and headed back toward the stranded vehicle. When he pulled onto the shoulder, the woman looked surprised. Rainwater dripped from her dark coat as she approached cautiously. Michael rolled down the passenger window a few inches. "Are you okay?" he asked. The woman looked relieved. "My car broke down about 30 minutes ago," she explained. "My phone battery died, and I haven't been able to reach anyone." Her voice was calm, but carried obvious concern. Michael glanced at the disabled vehicle and then at the empty highway. There were no other cars nearby. She was truly stranded. Michael stepped out into the rain despite his exhaustion. The cold water soaked through his jacket almost immediately. After inspecting the vehicle briefly, he realized the problem was beyond a simple roadside fix. "I think you'll need a tow truck," he said. The woman nodded. "That's what I was afraid of." Michael invited her to sit inside his truck, where it was warm and dry. She hesitated for a moment before accepting. Once inside, she thanked him sincerely. Her polite manner suggested professionalism, though nothing about her appearance revealed who she was. Using his phone, Michael searched for local towing companies. Several lines were busy because of the weather, but eventually he reached a dispatcher. The estimated wait time was nearly an hour. The woman apologized repeatedly for inconveniencing him. Michael waved off her concerns. "Don't worry about it," he replied. "Anyone would do the same." In truth, he knew that wasn't entirely accurate. Many vehicles had passed her without stopping. Still, he believed helping others should never depend on convenience. His parents had taught him that character was measured by actions, especially when no reward was expected. While waiting for the tow truck, Michael noticed the woman shivering slightly. A small gas station sat less than a mile away. Despite the late hour and his limited cash, he offered to buy her something warm to drink. She tried to refuse, but he insisted. A few minutes later, he returned carrying 2 cups of coffee. The woman accepted hers gratefully. Steam rose between them as rain continued pounding against the truck windows. For the first time, both of them relaxed. The situation no longer felt quite so stressful. Their conversation remained simple. The woman introduced herself as Rebecca. She explained that she was traveling for work and had taken a different route to avoid traffic. Michael told her about Lily and mentioned that he was raising her alone. Rebecca listened attentively. Unlike many people, she didn't interrupt or offer empty sympathy. She simply listened. That alone made Michael feel unexpectedly comfortable. He found himself sharing stories about Lily's school projects and her dream of becoming a veterinarian. Rebecca smiled warmly and seemed genuinely interested in every detail. As the minutes passed, Rebecca observed the man sitting beside her. His clothes were worn, and his truck had clearly seen better days, yet there was dignity in the way he carried himself. He never complained about his hardships. He spoke about challenges honestly, but without bitterness. Most impressive of all was the way he talked about his daughter. Every sentence reflected pride, love, and devotion. Rebecca could see that Lily was the center of his world. She had met many successful people throughout her career, but genuine kindness was often much rarer than success. Eventually, flashing lights appeared in the distance. The tow truck had arrived. The driver quickly assessed the situation and began loading Rebecca's vehicle. Michael helped secure a few belongings from the car and carried her suitcase through the rain. Once everything was arranged, Rebecca turned to him with heartfelt gratitude. "You stayed all this time just to help a stranger," she said. "Most people wouldn't have done that." Michael shrugged modestly. "Someone would have done the same for me," he replied, though he wasn't entirely sure that was true. Rebecca reached into her purse as if intending to offer money, but Michael immediately shook his head. "No," he said firmly. "You don't owe me anything." She looked surprised. In a world where favors often came with expectations, his refusal stood out. For a brief moment, neither spoke. Rain continued falling around them while the tow truck engine rumbled nearby. Finally, Rebecca smiled. "Then at least let me say thank you." Michael returned the smile. "You're welcome. Get home safely." With that, he turned toward his truck. As Michael drove away into the stormy Texas night, he felt satisfied despite the delay. He had lost more than an hour, spent money he could barely spare, and would arrive home even later than expected. Yet he didn't regret stopping. Helping someone in need simply felt like the right thing to do. He had no idea that the woman he assisted was far more important than she appeared. He believed the encounter was over and that he would never see Rebecca again. But fate had already begun setting events in motion that would soon change his life forever. A week passed after the rainy night on the Texas highway, and Michael Carter returned to his normal routine. Each morning began before sunrise and ended long after dark. The encounter with Rebecca became nothing more than a pleasant memory. He occasionally wondered whether she had reached her destination safely, but life left little time for reflection. Bills continued arriving, work remained exhausting, and his attention stayed focused on Lily. Like most single parents, he lived one day at a time. Unknown to him, an important legal hearing was approaching, one that could determine the future of his family. The legal dispute had started several months earlier. After learning about Michael's financial struggles, Emily's wealthy relatives became concerned about Lily's living conditions. Although they claimed their intentions were good, Michael felt they misunderstood the situation completely. They believed money was the answer to everything. Because they owned a successful business and lived in an upscale neighborhood, they argued that Lily would enjoy better opportunities with them. Michael never doubted that they cared about Lily, but the idea of losing his daughter terrified him more than anything else in the world. The case slowly moved through the family court system. Lawyers gathered documents, interviewed witnesses, and examined every detail of Michael's life. His income, housing situation, work schedule, and parenting habits were all scrutinized. The process felt humiliating at times. Michael understood that courts had a responsibility to protect children, yet he hated feeling as though he had to prove his worth as a father. Every time he looked at Lily, he wondered what would happen if the judge ruled against him. The thought haunted him during work, during meals, and even in his dreams. Despite the stress, Michael tried to shield Lily from the conflict. He never spoke negatively about her relatives and avoided discussing court matters around her. However, children often sensed tension even when adults attempted to hide it. One evening, Lily sat beside him on the couch while doing homework. "Dad," she asked quietly, "I'm staying with you, right?" Michael's heart sank. He wrapped an arm around her shoulders and smiled reassuringly. "Of course you are," he said. Although he sounded confident, uncertainty lingered deep inside him. The hearing date finally arrived on a cool Monday morning in Dallas. Michael barely slept the night before. He woke early, put on his best suit, and reviewed paperwork one final time. The suit had been purchased years earlier and no longer fit perfectly, but it was all he had. Before leaving, he prepared breakfast for Lily and asked a trusted neighbor to watch her during the hearing. Lily hugged him tightly at the front door. "Good luck, Dad," she whispered. Michael kissed her forehead and promised he would return soon. The drive to the courthouse felt longer than usual. Traffic crawled through downtown Dallas while anxious thoughts raced through Michael's mind. He rehearsed possible questions and imagined countless outcomes. Some were hopeful, others were frightening. He reminded himself that he had done everything possible for Lily. He worked hard, provided a stable home, and loved her unconditionally. Yet fear remained. Court decisions often depended on factors beyond emotion. Wealth, resources, and appearances could influence perceptions. Michael worried that his modest income might overshadow years of dedication and sacrifice. When he arrived at the courthouse, the building seemed larger and more intimidating than ever. Lawyers hurried through hallways carrying thick files. Families sat nervously on benches, awaiting their hearings. Michael checked in and took a seat outside the courtroom. Across the hall, Emily's relatives stood with their attorney. They exchanged polite greetings, but tension lingered beneath the surface. None of them appeared cruel or malicious. They genuinely believed they could offer Lily a better future. Unfortunately, good intentions did little to ease Michael's fear of losing his daughter. After what felt like hours, the courtroom doors opened. Everyone entered and took their places. Michael sat quietly beside his attorney, trying to control his nerves. Then the courtroom clerk announced the judge's arrival. As the judge stepped through the side entrance, Michael's eyes widened in disbelief. His heart nearly stopped. Sitting on the bench was Rebecca, the stranded woman from the stormy night. The same woman who had shared coffee with him in his truck now wore judicial robes and carried an air of authority. For a moment, Michael wondered if he was imagining it. Rebecca recognized him immediately. Their eyes met briefly before she assumed a professional expression. No smile appeared, no acknowledgement beyond a subtle look of recognition. She was now Judge Rebecca Morgan, responsible for overseeing the case fairly and impartially. Michael understood that the previous encounter could not influence her decision. Still, the coincidence felt unbelievable. Of all the judges in Texas, the woman he had helped happened to be presiding over the most important hearing of his life. The realization left him stunned as proceedings officially began. The hearing lasted several hours. Attorneys presented evidence regarding Lily's welfare, educational opportunities, and living conditions. Emily's relatives emphasized their financial stability. They described spacious homes, private schools, and extensive resources. Their arguments were logical and well-organized. Listening to them, Michael, worried that the court might conclude wealth alone determined a child's future. Yet Judge Morgan listened carefully without revealing any opinions. She took notes, asked thoughtful questions, and ensured every participant had an opportunity to speak. Her professionalism reassured everyone in the courtroom. When Michael's turn came to testify, he felt nervous but determined. He described his daily routine and explained how he balanced work with parenting responsibilities. He spoke honestly about financial challenges while emphasizing the stability and love within their home. Rather than exaggerating or seeking sympathy, he focused on facts. He shared stories about helping Lily with homework, attending school events, and supporting her dreams. As he spoke, his voice occasionally trembled, but his sincerity remained evident. Every word reflected the devotion of a father who placed his child above everything else. Judge Morgan listened attentively throughout his testimony. She asked detailed questions about Lily's education, emotional well-being, and support network. Michael answered each one carefully. He explained how neighbors, teachers, and friends had become part of their extended community after Emily's death. He also discussed Lily's strong academic performance and positive relationships at school. The answers demonstrated that although their life lacked luxury, it provided consistency and security. More importantly, it showed that Lily felt loved. The courtroom grew unusually quiet as everyone absorbed the depth of his commitment. Several witnesses also testified on Michael's behalf. Lily's teacher described her as a happy, respectful student who often spoke proudly about her father. A neighbor explained how Michael consistently prioritized Lily despite working long hours. Another witness recalled seeing him attend every parent-teacher conference in school. Performance? Their statements painted a picture of a dedicated parent rather than a struggling man overwhelmed by hardship. Piece by piece, the evidence revealed a truth that could not be measured by bank accounts or property values. Michael was giving his daughter exactly what she needed. As the hearing neared its conclusion, attorneys delivered final arguments. Emily's relatives emphasized opportunities they could provide. Michael's attorney focused on emotional stability and parental bonds. The contrast was clear. One side offered material advantages, the other offered continuity, love, and proven commitment. Judge Morgan thanked everyone for their presentations and announced a short recess before delivering her decision. The courtroom emptied into the hallway. Michael sat alone on a bench, staring at the floor. He felt emotionally exhausted and prepared himself for any outcome. During the recess, memories flooded Michael's mind. He remembered Lily taking her first steps, learning to ride a bicycle and crying after her mother's funeral. He remembered staying awake through fevers, helping with school projects, and reading bedtime stories after exhausting work shifts. Every memory reinforced one truth: Lily was his entire world. Losing custody would devastate both of them. For the first time that day, he silently prayed. Not for wealth, success, or comfort, only for the chance to continue being the father his daughter needed. Eventually, everyone returned to the courtroom. The atmosphere felt tense as Judge Morgan reviewed several pages of notes. Michael could hear his own heartbeat. Emily's relatives sat quietly, equally anxious. After a brief pause, Judge Morgan began speaking. She summarized evidence presented during the hearing and acknowledged the sincerity of all parties involved. Then she addressed the central issue. The court's responsibility, she explained, was determining what served Lily's best interests. Financial advantages mattered, but they represented only one part of a much larger picture. Judge Morgan continued by highlighting the importance of emotional security, parental involvement, and consistent caregiving. She noted that every witness described Michael as a devoted and responsible father. School records demonstrated that Lily was thriving academically and socially. There was no evidence of neglect, abuse, or instability. Although Emily's relatives possessed greater financial resources, the court found no reason to disrupt a loving and successful parent-child relationship. Michael listened carefully, hardly daring to breathe. The direction of her remarks filled him with cautious hope. Finally, Judge Morgan delivered the decision. Custody would remain with Michael Carter. The court recognized him as a capable and dedicated parent whose commitment to his daughter had been clearly demonstrated. Relief washed over him instantly. Tears filled his eyes before he could stop them. Across The room, Emily's relatives appeared disappointed, but respectful. The ruling was not a condemnation of their concern, it was a recognition of Michael's devotion. Years of sacrifice, perseverance, and unconditional love had been acknowledged by the court. As people slowly began leaving the courtroom, Michael remained seated for a moment, overwhelmed by emotion. He felt lighter than he had in months. The fear that had followed him for so long was finally gone. When he eventually stood, Judge Morgan approached him briefly near the exit. Her expression was warm but professional. "Mr. Carter," she said, "the decision was based entirely on the evidence presented today." Michael nodded respectfully. He understood. Nevertheless, he appreciated hearing it directly from her. After a brief pause, Judge Morgan added something more personal. She recalled the stormy night when he had stopped to help a stranded stranger. "You expected nothing in return," she said quietly. "Acts like that reveal character." Michael smiled modestly. He had never considered the encounter extraordinary. To him, it was simply the right thing to do, yet hearing those words reminded him that kindness mattered, even when unnoticed. Sometimes, the smallest decisions revealed the truest parts of who a person was. Leaving the courthouse, Michael immediately called his neighbor. Moments later, Lily was on the phone. "Dad?" she asked nervously. Fighting back tears, Michael smiled. "We're going home," he said. The joy in her voice was unforgettable. When he arrived to pick her up, she ran into his arms and hugged him tightly. For several seconds, neither spoke. Words were unnecessary. They both understood what the decision meant. Together, they walked toward the future they had fought so hard to protect, grateful for the second chance they had been given. The weeks following the court decision felt different for Michael Carter. For the first time in months, he woke up without the weight of uncertainty pressing on his chest. The fear of losing Lily was finally gone. Their small house seemed brighter, and even ordinary moments felt special. Every breakfast they shared, every homework session at the kitchen table, and every evening walk around the neighborhood reminded him how close he had come to losing everything. Although life remained financially difficult, he no longer felt trapped by worry. The future still contained challenges, but now it also contained hope. Lily noticed the change immediately. Her father smiled more often and seemed less distracted. Before the court case ended, Michael frequently stared into space while calculating bills or worrying about legal expenses. Now he paid more attention to conversations and laughed more easily. One Saturday morning, Lily found him humming while making pancakes. "You're in a good mood today," she teased. Michael chuckled and flipped another pancake onto her plate. "Maybe I finally remembered what it feels like to breathe," he replied. Lily didn't fully understand, but she smiled and enjoyed seeing him happy. Although the court battle had ended, the legal expenses left Michael struggling financially. His savings had disappeared and several bills remained unpaid. He considered taking additional work shifts, but he worried that spending less time with Lily would defeat the purpose of everything he had fought for. One evening, while reviewing expenses at the kitchen table, he realized just how fragile their situation remained. A single emergency could create serious problems. Still, he refused to complain. Compared to the possibility of losing his daughter, financial difficulties seemed manageable. A few days later, Michael received an unexpected phone call during his lunch break at the warehouse. The number was unfamiliar. Assuming it might be a customer or service provider, he answered casually. To his surprise, the voice on the other end belonged to Judge Rebecca Morgan. For a moment, he wondered whether something was wrong. Judges rarely contacted individuals involved in cases. Rebecca quickly clarified that the matter was unrelated to court proceedings. She simply wanted to speak with him regarding a community program she supported. Curious, Michael agreed to listen. Rebecca explained that she volunteered with a non-profit organization that assisted single parents facing financial hardship. The group offered career development resources, educational opportunities, and emergency support services. During their previous conversations and court proceedings, she had learned enough about Michael's situation to believe he might benefit from the program. She emphasized that her call had nothing to do with her judicial role and everything to do with helping families succeed. Michael thanked her, but hesitated. Pride often prevented him from accepting assistance. He had spent years solving problems alone. That evening, Michael thought carefully about the offer. He remembered how difficult life had become after Emily's death. For years, he had rejected help because accepting assistance felt like admitting weakness, yet he also knew that refusing every opportunity had limited his growth. When Lily noticed him staring thoughtfully at the kitchen table, she asked what was wrong. After explaining the situation, he expected her to remain neutral. Instead, she smiled. "Mom always said smart people accept help when they need it," she reminded him. Her words stayed with him long afterward. The following week, Michael attended an orientation meeting at the non-profit organization. The building was modest but welcoming. Inside, he met other parents facing challenges similar to his own. Some were recovering from divorces, others had lost spouses, and many struggled to balance work with raising children. For the first time in years, Michael realized he wasn't alone. Listening to their stories helped him understand that seeking support wasn't a sign of failure. It was often a necessary step toward building a better future. The experience immediately changed his perspective. One program in particular captured Michael's attention. The organization partnered with local businesses to provide technical training and certification courses. Participants who completed the program often qualified for higher-paying positions. Michael had years of mechanical experience, but lacked formal certifications that could increase his earning potential. The training required evening classes several times each week, which initially worried him. However, the program also provided childcare services. For once, an opportunity existed without forcing him to choose between career advancement and spending time with Lily. After discussing the decision with his daughter, Michael enrolled. The first few weeks proved difficult. He attended classes after long workdays and often returned home exhausted. Yet he discovered that he genuinely enjoyed learning. The instructors respected his practical knowledge and encouraged him to expand his skills. Gradually, concepts that once seemed intimidating became familiar. Lily supported him every step of the way. While he studied at the dining table, she completed homework beside him. Sometimes they quizzed each other before tests, turning education into a shared family project. Months passed, and Michael's confidence grew. He completed assignments successfully and earned praise from instructors. More importantly, he began believing in possibilities he had previously dismissed. For years, survival had been his only goal. Now he started imagining a future that included stability, growth, and opportunities for Lily. The change affected every aspect of his life. Friends noticed renewed energy in his voice. Co-workers observed improved morale. Even simple challenges seemed less overwhelming because he finally felt as though he was moving forward rather than merely holding on. One afternoon, near the end of the program, participants attended a networking event with local employers. Michael arrived wearing the same suit he had worn to court months earlier. Although still slightly worn, it represented perseverance rather than struggle. During the event, he spoke with several company representatives about his experience repairing industrial equipment. One manager seemed particularly interested. They discussed technical systems, maintenance procedures, and workplace safety standards. The conversation lasted nearly 30 minutes, and ended with an invitation for a formal interview the following week. The interview exceeded Michael's expectations. The company specialized in advanced manufacturing equipment and sought experienced technicians with leadership potential. Unlike many previous job opportunities, this position offered excellent benefits, competitive pay, and predictable working hours. Michael answered questions honestly and demonstrated knowledge gained through years of practical experience combined with recent training. Several days later, he received the news. He had been selected for the position. The salary increase would significantly improve his financial situation. For a few moments after reading the email, he simply sat in stunned silence. When Lily returned from school that afternoon, Michael met her at the front door with a huge smile. She immediately sensed something important had happened. "What is it?" she asked excitedly. Michael handed her the printed job offer. Although she didn't fully understand every detail, she recognized the significance. "You got it!" she shouted. Michael nodded. Seconds later, she launched herself into his arms. They celebrated with homemade pizza and ice cream that evening. It wasn't an extravagant celebration, but neither of them cared. The achievement meant far more than money. Several weeks after starting his new position, Michael received another surprise. The company recognized his dedication and assigned him to oversee a small maintenance team. The promotion came with additional responsibilities, but it also confirmed that others saw potential in him. For years, he had viewed himself primarily as a struggling single father. Now he began seeing himself as a capable professional with valuable skills. The shift in mindset was powerful. Success no longer seemed reserved for other people. Through perseverance and hard work, he had earned his own opportunity. One evening, nearly a year after the stormy highway encounter, Michael attended a charity fundraiser hosted by the non-profit organization. Participants, donors, and community leaders gathered to celebrate success stories. Rebecca Morgan was among the guests. When she spotted Michael and Lily entering the event, she smiled warmly. The three spent several minutes talking. Rebecca listened proudly as Michael described his new career and Lily's excellent grades. Seeing their progress reminded her why community programs mattered. Sometimes people needed only a small opportunity to transform their circumstances completely. During the event, organizers invited several participants to share their experiences. To Michael's surprise, they asked him to speak. Public speaking made him nervous, but he agreed. Standing before the audience, he reflected on the journey that had brought him there. He spoke about grief, hardship, and the loneliness of raising a child alone. He also spoke about kindness. He described how one small decision, to stop and help a stranger during a storm, had reinforced an important lesson. Acts of compassion often created consequences far beyond what anyone could imagine. The audience listened attentively as Michael explained that success rarely happened in isolation. Throughout his life, people had offered support exactly when he needed it most. Neighbors helped after Emily's death. Teachers encouraged Lily. Non-profit volunteers provided opportunities. Even strangers showed unexpected kindness. None of those individuals solved every problem, but together they created pathways forward. Michael concluded by encouraging others to help whenever possible, even when rewards seemed unlikely. "You never know whose life you might change," he said. The room responded with enthusiastic applause. After the speech, Rebecca approached him quietly. "You gave them something important tonight," she said. Michael smiled. "I'm just telling the truth." Rebecca nodded. She understood better than most. The night they first met, Michael had no idea who she was. He helped because someone needed assistance, not because she held influence or power. In a world where many actions were motivated by personal gain, that simple fact remained remarkable. It revealed integrity that no courtroom testimony or legal document could fully capture. Character showed itself through everyday choices. As the evening ended, Michael and Lily stepped outside into the cool Texas air. The city lights shimmered in the distance, and a gentle breeze moved through the trees. For a moment, Michael looked toward the sky and thought about Emily. He wished she could see how far they had come. He imagined her smiling proudly at Lily's accomplishments and the life they had rebuilt together. Although grief never disappeared completely, it no longer defined every part of his existence. Love, resilience, and hope had gradually taken its place. Driving home, Lily rested comfortably in the passenger seat. She glanced at her father and smiled. "Things turned out pretty good, didn't they?" she asked. Michael laughed softly. "Yeah," he replied. "Better than I ever expected." The road stretched ahead beneath the stars, calm and clear. It was hard to believe that everything had started with a broken-down car on a rainy highway. Yet life often worked that way. One small choice could alter countless futures. And, as father and daughter continued their journey together, they carried that lesson with them into every tomorrow.